listener production.
Hello, Natarsha Belling with you, and welcome to the afternoon edition of The Briefing. Coming up in our deep dive, an important but very confronting chat about the video game No Mercy that has just been banned in Australia. The game is horrific, encouraging players to sexually assault their mothers and, quote, make women yours. With such horrifying content, who is making and playing these games? Cyber expert Susan McLean will join us to chat about the urgent action needed to protect our most vulnerable online. But first, let's check the afternoon headlines this Thursday, the 10th of April. Key Democrats are making bombshell allegations about possible insider trading after Donald Trump's tariff pause. Some financial experts claim the latest move was an embarrassing backdown by Mr. Trump. Others are adamant it was a strategic move in the ongoing international trade war. After the announcement, US stocks soared to one of their best days on record. But Californian Senator Adam Schiff is one of many now demanding answers.
You may have seen early in the day Trump tweet this. Now, this is a good time to buy. So the question is, between that tweet and Donald Trump's announcement that he was reducing the tariffs on most other nations apart from China, the question is, who knew what the president was going to do? And did people around the president trade stock knowing the incredible gyration the market was about to go through? Because, look, this is a president who is trading in his own meme coin, even as he's president. His kids are trading in their own cryptocurrency. You've got people like Elon Musk who are doing their own conflicted self-dealing in the administration. In any administration this corrupt, it is more than necessary to ask, were people personally profiting from insider information while people's savings, their retirement accounts, were being torched?
Mr. Trump's 90-day tariff pause is for more than 70 countries except China. Here is the US president.
They were getting yippy, they were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid. I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them, if you retaliate, we're going to double it.
Meantime, the Australian share market has also bounced back today, climbing more than 6% after the tariff pause. Here is our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese.
I speak to Ambassador Rudd regularly, and we engage with the United States administration in a diplomatic way, not with a loud hailer, but in a diplomatic way.
And financial experts say while today's development may be better news for the Australian economy, there are now serious questions about whether the RBA will cut the official cash rate. And Virgin Australia has admitted to overcharging more than 60,000 customers $3.3 million between 2020 and March this year. The airline notified the ACCC about the error, with a spokesperson saying the average refund is estimated to be around $55 per person. Customers can access an online claim portal run by Deloitte. Before we get into this interview, a warning: we do discuss strong themes of rape, incest and violence. Cyber safety expert Susan McLean joins us to discuss the video game No Mercy that was recently banned here in Australia. It's a graphic, horrific game that glorifies rape, sexual assault, incest and also violence. So who is making these games and why aren't they being held accountable? And are governments really cracking down on keeping our children and young people safe online? Susan, thanks so much for joining us. We know the damage that a lot of online content is causing for many Australians, in particular young Australians. There is a new development with this online game called No Mercy. Can you explain exactly what this game is?
Well, it's a vile and violent game where the main themes that run through the game are incest and raping your mother and taking ownership of the women in your life.
So how does anyone even come up with the concept of that, let alone to make a game about it?
That's the million-dollar question. Clearly, there is a demand for it, which is extremely concerning. I did read some commentary around the game about online groups or subgroups where this type of content and these type of fantasies are shared and promoted and celebrated. So it does exist. It's being called out now. There's been a mass of emails back to Steam and to Valve, which is the owner of Steam. What we know is that they pulled it for use or be able to download it and play it in Australia. But then we worked out very quickly that that was just a geo-block. And if you were somewhere else in the world or you were using a VPN, you could still access it.
Now, I'm going to warn our lovely listeners that the details of this description are really confronting that I'm going to read out. Some of the descriptions on Steam about this game, and I'm quoting here, after your stepmother's affair shatters your family, you take on a new role, not to fix what's broken, but to claim her for yourself. Unveil her deepest secrets, subdue her, and make all women in the game yours. What are your thoughts? I mean, to me, this also plays into the fact of there are some serious unresolved issues about the breakdown of family here and being violently aggressive towards the female.
Yeah, look, we see that and we've seen it bubbling along over, many years now with the internet, in that the vast majority of people would listen to this, would, if they've come across it, be absolutely appalled by it. They would see it as abhorrent. They would see it for what it is. But there is a subgroup of people that this plays into their hands. And we know that there is a large amount of gendered violence. We know that we've seen some pretty horrible cases where women have been abused by men, where young girls have been abused by men. There was a case in the Victorian Supreme Court. Now, it's not generated a lot of media chatter because there's a prohibition on naming both the offender and the victim. But this is one of the first cases where someone has been prosecuted and jailed for servitude. So this is a step up from coercive control, where a male had utter control over a female for about 3 years. And that include violence, physical violence, and psychological torment. So it is playing out in society. And this sort of content just plays into the hands of those that have the misguided belief that females are possessions to be owned.
Susan, what do you think is behind this? Is, my concern, like a lot of other experts, is the fact that we have had a whole generation, I'd almost say a number of generations, exposed to incredibly, incredibly violent, sexually graphic content online, and they've been completely desensitized. That is both females and males.
Oh, absolutely. And, I was reading a comment by Marie Crabb, who is a researcher, an expert in the effects of violent pornography on young people. And she talks about the fact that pornography, people are not just watching it to get some ideas about what might be good to do or what they might enjoy doing. It's now a consumption item. So they're consuming content in a way that they never did before. We know over 80% of all pornography watched in Australia includes an act of violence such as choking or strangulation, which is particularly concerning because there is no safe way to strangle someone. But again, this is where the only thing we can do is to speak up about this when we become aware of it, and we need to speak up loudly. But we have to have those conversations with the young people in our life. We need to know what they're doing online, who they're doing it with, what content they're consuming, and then to be able to instill in our young people the correct values.
You make a great point there, Susan, because this has certainly been highlighted yet again by the Netflix series Adolescence, which I think, or I don't know what your thoughts are, I almost think that should be compulsive viewing, especially in schools and for parents and carers and adolescents to know what's going on. But to what degree do you think the companies that allow this content to be available online should be held responsible?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you cannot for one moment have any sort of valid argument to host a game that promotes incest, criminal act, violence, criminal act, and rape, criminal act. And one of the reasons the game got pulled in Australia is because it had not got permission here, like it breached our classification. So it got pulled. But again, as I've mentioned, you can get it elsewhere. But these platforms are all care, no responsibility, and they don't care the harm that they're doing. And The other thing that bothers me greatly is we have the federal government here rabbiting on about banning kids from accessing social media until they're 16, which is whack-a-mole and is not going to fix anything and is going to be totally unenforceable. Yet these games are still there. The content is still there. There's plenty of other places they can go to get access to content that, you're not going to find that content on a Meta platform, for example. But we'll ban a kid from having an Instagram account, but we won't stop them from accessing this on Steam. And that's why some of these ideas that the government have come up with are flawed because they do not address holistically the issue.
So where is the solution, Susan? Because yet again, you make a great point. I remember seeing all of the headlines, and this is the responsibility of both levels of government, both sides. Oh, the federal government cracks down. They save a whole generation from social media. The devil was in the detail that it's not going to do anything for young Australians accessing social media. They just find a way around it. So what is the solution here?
The only statement that was made when this all blew up late last year was about a digital duty of care where a government would be enforcing certain standards on the platforms. The kids are 1,000 times smarter than Anthony Albanese and Michelle Rowland will ever be.
Mm-hmm.
They've already worked out ways around it. They know what to do to get around it. The government still have not even defined what's going to be banned. Like they've not even got a list. So that's, how flawed this is. So forcing the platforms to do better with what we've got is probably the only thing that we can do. So have clear expectations of what the platforms can offer the users. Technology is not inherently bad. There are bad things that happen. There is inappropriate content. But if we work towards managing the rules that we have, sticking to them, empowering parents, and then the one thing with the adolescent series, which it's done, is it has certainly created water cooler chatter, if you like. So people are talking about it now, whereas before it was very much not my kid. I don't really have to worry about it. I trust my kid. So we've got a little bit past that. So I think that's really good. But making sure that the platforms that children are accessing, which they are going to access, are fit for purpose. So making sure that digital duty of care so that the content a young person consumes is suitable for that young person. And, you're not going to do that with, a whack-a-mole approach of, banning certain platforms and not others. I've had parents say to me, I can't wait for the ban to come in. Then I'll know that if it's banned, it's bad. But if it's not banned, it's okay for my child to access. Well, how stupid is that? Because Steam's not going to be banned. YouTube's not banned. They've got a clear exemption. And yes, you can learn to change a tap washer on YouTube, but there is also inappropriate content there as well. So, I think it's flawed logic. It is going not to help anyone. It plays into the hands of panicked parents rather than offering real solutions. And that is to make the internet and the experience for young people as safe as humanly possible.
I know it's an incredibly complicated issue that is, as we've mentioned before, affecting so many young Australians and so many families. What do you think could be some of the key solutions? We need to have conversations with our children and always be, in there telling them what is acceptable and what's not. But how do we hold these platforms accountable?
With great difficulty is the short answer there. We can be vocal in what we say. We can reach out to them. We can be forceful in the media. We can make sure that, if we've got a message to share, it gets picked up by mainstream media so that the more people that know about things, the better that you can action them often. If there's a groundswell of support, it's often better than support of one. But we need schools to be educated. We need that education to come down to kids. We need the government to do their bit as well. But it all has to be, an equal part of the pie. We can't just have a big stick being waved and assume that that's going to fix it because it's not. Ultimately, we need to get to the why someone thinks that creating a game where rape, incest and abuse is classed as entertainment. And, that's probably a bigger question that I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I can't answer that. And I don't think many psychologists and psychiatrists could answer that question. But that's where we're at. Why did someone think that these topics were worthy of entertainment, in inverted commas?
Susan, thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
That was Susan McLean from Cyber Safety Solutions. And if you or someone you know needs help, you can call Lifeline. That number is 131114. Kids Helpline, that number is 1800 55 1800, or 1800-RESPECT, that is 1800 737 732. And that's it for this episode of the afternoon edition of The Briefing. You can also follow us on our socials, on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast, and on TikTok and YouTube. You just need to search Listener Newsroom. That is LISTNR. And we'll be back in your feed tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. I'm Natarsha Belling. Thanks for your company. See you tomorrow.